All right, welcome back. This is going to be part 51 on my presentation on the flood and Noah's Ark. And we're going to continue on with the topic of Dinosaur National Monument and some of the controversy concerning it. We've been looking at the secular side of it. And in this video here, we're going to be looking at the creationist side of it. And so you got two different views looking at a same catastrophic event, and which the secular view doesn't believe that it happened from one catastrophic event, but possibly multiple catastrophic events, like a flooding of a river, maybe a drought. A drought caused the dinosaurs to die near the river, and then when the rains returned, it washed the dinosaur bones downriver, and they all kind of collected in bends and turns in the river, and that's how it happened. And so, but the creationist worldview is different. You know, we see it as one catastrophic event, and the event caused what I've been showing you guys from the previous videos, and along in other parts of the world and in other fossil graveyards that I'll show you, clearly shows a catastrophic event, guys, especially with the amount of animals and the like the Morrison Formation itself, the whole layer, the whole formation being 700,000 square miles. I mean, how do you get something like that? That type of sediment, that type of layering to happen, on a huge part of the continent? It would have to be something gigantic, biblical, historical, biblical. One of the theories that they had about the area was that it was a swamp. They call it the swamp theory. And so now I haven't been able to find really a whole lot about this on the evolution side. And even in the creation side, they do talk about it, but they don't really go in depth on it. But it is something that has been proposed, this area here was a lush type of swamp area, lots of plants, lots of dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs dying off, and then over time their bones just collecting through the millions of years of them dying, and the bones laying, and then they get buried, and then more dinosaurs, over time you just collect that. And so now, one of the problems with that is that bones are not going to last long, just being out in the open, unless when the flood happened, it was a special event. It was the atmosphere, the planet itself went under special conditions that caused these types of things that we see today as far as the fossils and stuff like that. You are going to be hard pressed to get animals to just die, lay on the ground, and then later on, somehow or another, unless they are covered up with a catastrophic type of event, talking in the traditional terms, you are going to be hard pressed to get anything to fossilize today. It's just most of likely it's just not going to happen. This was an event that happened. It was a specialized event. The requirements were just right, and I believe the Lord did it that way to show proof of the flood account that demonstrates that the scriptures are correct. And so, but at any rate, if you'll notice this animal here, they called it the Brontosaurus. Now, what had happened was the wrong head was put on an Apatosaurus, and they named it a Brontosaur. That's what happened. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But if you'll notice the swamp theory itself, I will say this. I agree. I do believe that the dinosaurs lived in a very tropical, even a swampy type of environment. There's nothing wrong with that because the Bible already declared it. If you'll notice here in the book of Job, if you'll go to the 40th chapter of Job, and the chapter 40 and 41, there are two animals that sure sound like they very well could be dinosaurs, especially Job 40. And so now I do go through this in my Dinosaur and Man presentation. And so if I can remember, I will put a link to that, at least the startup of it. I'm sure it took me several videos to go through it. It seems like we went through the entire chapter of chapter 40 and we detailed that chapter. And so I will at least put up the first one of that, and you can watch the rest of them if you wish. And then we went through Leviathan after that. And so either way, it was either Leviathan first and we went through Behemoth, or we did Behemoth first and Leviathan. Either way, but I'll give you Behemoth. But it says here in chapter 40, verse 21, that it says, and this is King James, he lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens. The covert of the reed and fens. Now, that fen word is Hebrew. It's bitzah, and it means a swamp or marsh. That Behemoth lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reeds and the swamps, is basically what it's saying. And so there's nothing, we agree with that. It's just the what they say after that as far as the bones collecting and stuff like that. And so now they don't mention the swamp theory at Dinosaur National Monument. They say that the dinosaurs had died, and then and during the rainy seasons when maybe the waters were overflowed more than others, or they washed the bones downstream and they just collected in certain areas. And so it just happened over different time periods, and so over long time periods. And that happened, and that's how the dinosaur bones collected up. If you now, when we talk about the swamp, also, and it's really interesting that Dr. Roy Mackal, who is an evolutionist, he was very convinced that there was a dinosaur in the Congo swamps in Africa. He believed that, and he actually got some of his information from Job chapter 40, which we just took a verse and read it. But now listen, guys, this guy's an evolutionist. He never says that he's a Christian or he even believes the Bible whatsoever, but he was open-minded enough to say, hey, listen, the Bible even talks about how there is an animal that sure sounds like a dinosaur, and it lives in a swampy type of environment. And there's been so many witnesses and testimonies of dinosaur-like animals in the swamp region, or the Likawala swamp in Africa. And a lot of people are stating, well, how come they can't find one? How come they don't take a picture of one? And we're going to look at that here in just a second. But this is what the United States looks like compared to Africa. It is enormous. I mean, it's gigantic. And now the Likawala swamp, that whole area there in the Congo and Zaire, is 55,000 square miles, guys. 55,000 square miles. The swamp is mostly unexplored. Now, at nighttime, when you look at this region, you can just see how unindustrialized it is. So you look at that red area, that's that generalized area that we're looking at. Look, guys, there's nothing. There's nothing at all. And so mostly unexplored. There are some natives and people that do live here and there, and they're the ones that gave most of the testimonies and eyewitnesses that they saw animals that looked like dinosaurs, or they had a strong resemblance to dinosaurs. And so, again, you can clearly see an area like this where there very well could be dinosaur-like animals. And we're not talking about giant Jurassic Park, the movie Jurassic Park type animals. These are much smaller versions, and there's reason for that, the different atmosphere and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that later on in the Noah's Ark presentation. But just to give you guys a little idea, because people say, well, why don't they go out there and photograph one? Why don't they go out there and capture and kill one? It's a little bit harder than what you might think. Now, North Carolina, where I live at, the total square miles of this state is 53,821. The swamp area is 1,179 miles larger than the state of North Carolina. Now, I want to see somebody go out in North Carolina on foot. Maybe you can get a car here and there, But go on foot. Maybe you might have to get in a canoe, and I want you to try to find a pack of elephants. Jack, and you don't know where, you have no idea, and you can only go, and this place is not very hospitable. And some of the natives, well, they don't trust strangers in the area. It's much harder than you think. I can only imagine or surmise the amount of area that they would have to search. Where do you search? And you can only search for so long of time. And I've actually heard that sometimes they can only go a mile a day. And so much harder of areas. So as far as the swamp that they said, the swamp theory that dinosaurs live in, as far as the creation or the biblical side of it, there's no problem with that. I do agree. Now, going back to the Brontosaurus, if you'll remember this chart here, go all the way to the right-hand side where you see 1880s. Right there where Darwin is, you'll see 1871. Go over to the right, you'll see 1880s. Now go follow that blue line all the way down. And this was the time period of the dinosaur rush, or the Bone Wars, it was also known as, between Edward Cope and Othenio Marsh. Now, Othenio Marsh in 1877, he gave the name Apatosaurus, which means deceptive reptile, to a dinosaur whose hip and backbone fossils were found in a quarry near the Morrison, Colorado. Now, in 1879, Marsh gave the name Brontosaurus to an almost complete skeleton found at Como Bluff, Wyoming, which was missing its skull. He later reconstructed the Brontosaurus skeleton and gave it a Camarasaurus type skull that had been found in a different quarry and in a different layer of strata. Later in 1975, Dr. Jack McIntosh and Dr. David Berman convinced the scientific community that Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were the same animal. The Apatosaurus had the skull like of a Diplodocus. Since the rules used for giving scientific names to animals state that the first name given is the one kept, the name Apatosaurus was kept and Brontosaurus was dropped. So if you look over to the the left-hand side, you'll see a Camarasaurus and a Diplodocus, and the Diplodocus type skull was the correct one that was to go on to the animal that would be called the Apatosaurus. And so now what's really interesting, the Diplodocus and Apatosaur may be the exact same type of animal. So if you notice over again to the left-hand side, the top one is an Apatosaur and the bottom one is a Diplodocus, and they look exactly the same. Let's put it this way, they are extremely close in appearance. And so it's very well could be that the Apatosaurus and the Diplodocus was the same kind of animal, just different varieties, just like you would have different varieties of cats and dogs and stuff like that. It's still a dog and it's still a cat. You just got different sizes and stuff like that. And so that's a little bit something extra to go on your plate. As much as I hate to do it, guys, we're going to stop right here. I'm going to pick this up. I'm looking at my information here, and I got enough here. If I keep going, this is going to be about a 30-minute video. And so just to keep it bite-sized, like people tell me to do, I'm going to stop right here, and we're going to pick it up next time. And I probably got about 10 to 15 minutes of worth of information on this on the very last video. So just to keep it bite-sized, you guys chew on this. And when we come back, we're going to look at the creationist view of this, the biblical world view about this area, and look at it from a biblical worldview, a historical biblical worldview, and to look at the evidence here and to show you what the creationists say about this site. And so, but anyway, chew on what I just gave you, and we'll see you next time. All right? I love you. Hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.